Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Anglerquest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy, and I am so glad to have you along with us once again as we jump into a 3-hour celebration of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. We talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and often wild game cooking and lots more. And I am glad that you are along with me. Here in the studio this week, we're doing a little bit of time shifting. Now, this is not unusual. This show, when you hear it, is not live. It is pre-recorded. We usually record it midweek on Wednesday. This is no secret. And the reason we choose Wednesday is it gives us a time. It gives the network a time to get it distributed to the different stations. We can get it uploaded to the satellite. I can get it uploaded to the FTP. You know, this is too much, behind the scenes here. But this week, we're actually doing a couple of shows. I'm in here earlier than normal, and I will be back here in a couple of days to record another show. The reason we're doing that is to cover for my bear hunt in Ontario coming up next week. By the time you hear this show, in fact, I will either be on the way to White River, Ontario, or I will be there, maybe even hunting by then. Going up to White River to hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. This is something I've done for many, many years now. I think it's like 13 years or so. I started hunting up there with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. And the way that I got hooked into these guys in the first place, there is a young lady, a Michigan woman. In fact, her maiden name is Avery. And she said, hey, my dad, Wayne Avery, bought a place in Ontario halfway between Wawa and White River. And it's called the Halfway Lodge, Halfway Resort. And they're trying to bring some people up to the area. And there's a young guy in White River named Pete Jones who started a bear hunting operation. And would you be willing to come up and go hunting with him and give the operation some exposure? And at the time I had a TV show. I was always looking for stories, always looking for hunts, always looking for places that were, an easy drive. And from my place in mid-Michigan, it's about an 8-hour drive to White River. And I said, sure, because at that time, the only bear hunting experience I'd had in Ontario, to be honest with you, was pretty bad. I had hunted up there several times, and I think only seen one bear, and never got a shot at one, never took one, never got any good video. And I thought, I don't think there's any bears in Ontario. They said, oh, yeah, there's bears in White River. Come on up and give it a try. So I did. I went up there, hunted with Pete, and really had a great time, shot a bear, saw lots of bears. The people there were very friendly. There is a perception that in some parts of Canada, when you go up there to visit, that people are not always friendly. Now, I've been to Alberta, Manitoba, Quebec, and Ontario now, and I really haven't seen that. Now, granted, I'm going to places that they want to welcome us in. They want to welcome our business in. But I've been very pleased with the reception I've had from people in Canada, especially there in White River. So Pete Jones ran the operation for several years. I actually hunted wolves with Pete and his dad, Dave. Dave was my guide when I shot a wolf up there and under some very tough conditions, 40 below zero, snow up to your waist. That was an interesting experience. Pete eventually sold the operation to his right-hand man, Ron St. Louis. Ron changed the name to Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. I kept going up there. I had wonderful experiences every time. Every time I either shot a bear or at least had the opportunity to shoot a bear. And so I've kept going back until 2020. When everything changed, when COVID came along, they had to shut down. Well, the border was shut down, so Ron had to shut down his operation. And we didn't think we were going to be able to get back across the border this year. In fact, Ron had basically pulled the plug on things. He said, look at it, even if they open the border now, I don't have time to get the baits going. I don't have time to order my bait, to get the guys lined up, to get these bait stations going. And at the last minute, Ontario opened the border, and Ron said, okay, let's try it. We're going to do it. And I said, I'm in. I am absolutely in. Now, to get across the border, you've got to be fully vaccinated. You've got to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of crossing over. And when I say crossing over into Ontario, not crossing over into the next life, crossing over into Ontario. I don't know. Maybe 4 days from now I will. I don't know. You've got to download the app and have it all filled out. And I was concerned, okay, what's this crossing over into Ontario going to be like? And what's it going to be like to get back into the States? So I found out from talking with a couple of Customs and Border Patrol people that I know that said, no, coming back into the States is no big deal. And I've since talked with, I think, 3 or 4 people who have made the trip over into Ontario. And they said, as long as you have your paperwork in order, it's not a big deal. You can get right across. So I am really, really looking forward to it. And again, by the time you hear this show, I will be just getting started on this hunt. If you want to see how I'm doing, if you're curious at all, go to my Facebook page or my Instagram feed as well, because I will be posting regularly while I'm up there. I did, in my mind, officially make the jump back over to a crossbow. If you've been with me the last few weeks, I've been going back and forth. Do I stay with a recurve? Do I go back to a crossbow? And it was not an easy decision at first because I truly and dearly love traditional archery. There's something about that recurve that is just pure and basic and wonderful and simple. There's no rangefinder. There's no tripod. I mean, you look at the animal, you draw the bow back, you let the arrow go, and it's like Fred Bear-esque. And the last time I was up there in 2019, I did shoot a very nice bear with my recurve. One of the best shots I've ever made on an animal. Very fulfilling, very rewarding, because I had spent all spring and all summer shooting that recurve, getting ready for the hunting season. This year, to be honest with you, I haven't spent the time with that recurve that was necessary to give me the confidence that I could make a quick, clean, humane killing shot, which is the goal of all hunters. And we owe that to the animals, the critters that we're pursuing, knowing that if we do decide to take a shot, and oftentimes up there I see many, many bears that I just decide not to shoot because they're either not what I'm looking for, they're too small, I don't want to end the hunt that early, whatever. But when it comes time to the moment of truth and you say, okay, I'm going to let this arrow fly, you want to be confident that you can make the shot that you want to make. And I wasn't there with the recurve this year. So I said, okay, I could go to a compound or I could go back to a crossbow. And I chose to go back to a crossbow, a Darton Toxin crossbow, in fact. Last week, I got my hands on a Darton Toxin 150, which is the top of the line. It's the RD. It's the new model from the new Darton under new ownership, still based in Michigan. And that's why I wanted to shoot a Darton, Michigan-based company, made in Michigan. And I was experimenting with that Toxin 150. And it's a very, very impressive tool. In fact, I found it to be a little bit more than what I need. It's like 440 feet per second, 220 pounds of draw weight. And I'll be honest with you, especially after shooting a recurve for a couple of years, I was intimidated by that piece of gear. buy that Toxin 150. So I talked to Ted Harpham at Darton. I said, hey, I think maybe I should be shooting your 100 instead of your 150. He said, no problem. I'll get you one of those. So I got my hands on a Toxin 100. It is slower. It is easier to cock. There is less of everything. There's less force. There's less stored energy, and I just feel more comfortable with it. And it's still very, very accurate, more than what I need. I mean, realistically, when you're hunting bears over bait, like we are there in Ontario, or like I do in Michigan, it's up close and personal. I mean, I've got this thing sighted in for 30 yards, but realistically, it's going to be a 15 to 20-yard shot. So I'm feeling pretty good about that, and I'm actually very excited to get back up there. Again, if you want to see how I'm doing, I will post daily reports on my Facebook page and my Instagram feed as well. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show, after the break, Jason Carstens of True North Guide Service in Sault Ste. Marie. He reached out to me, invited me to come fishing with him. I can't, but I want to talk about his operation. Then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. They're getting ready for the big outdoor weekend. It's coming up just around the corner. In hour number 2, Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods, talking about celebrating their 50th anniversary. They have a big event coming up in a few weeks. Dan Kennedy from the DNR, Recovering America's Wildlife Act, this week's Ask Avery segment. And in hour number 3, we're talking about river fishing for kings with Tim Roller. He is the guy who knows this inside and out. Coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM, and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, and I absolutely love it. They are handmade works of art that are designed to be used. I was showing some people this knife that I have, and it's absolutely beautiful. And they said, oh, man, I'd put that in a case, or I'd put that up on the shelf. I would never use that. And I was talking with Chris Durson of Rapid River, and he said, look, my knives may be, some of them fancy, some of them beautiful, but they are designed to be used. He says, please do not buy a Rapid River knife and put it up on a shelf. Use the thing. And so I am. It is in my pocket all the time. I use it every day. And you know what? You probably have a knife in your pocket as well. Why not make it a Michigan-made, handmade knife from Rapid River? Check out the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. Or stop by their showroom in Rapid River. It is absolutely beautiful, very impressive. I haven't made it there yet. I've seen it online, but all of my friends who have stopped by said it is a destination. rapidriverknifeworks.com. Hey, keeping things in the UP here now, I got an email or a message, I don't remember, from Jason Carstens of True North Guide Service in the Sioux. And he said, Mike, I'd like you to come up, and I'd like to invite you to come up and do some fishing with us, because he knew I was going to be passing through that area on the way to White River for a bear hunt. I said, Jason, I would love to, but I'm not going to have time. However, Jason, I have been following you online, and what you're doing is very interesting, and I'd love to get you on the show. And he has graciously agreed, and he's here with us now. Jason Carstens of True North Guide Service, welcome to the Outdoor Magazine show. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning. Listen, tell me a little bit about your operation, Jason.
Well, I operate a guide service primarily targeting Atlantic salmon here in Sault Ste. Marie, and I love chasing for them. Primarily, I'm fly fishing for them up here, but I can also accommodate spin fishers as well.
Atlantics. Now, that is a fish that I am absolutely fascinated by. I've never caught one, but they're an interesting critter, aren't they?
You know, I personally think that they're the future of the Great Lakes. The way just kind of the salmonoid population is going, they're a very cool fish. Wonderful table fare. They're a heck of a fighter.
Do they Are they resident fish in the river, or are they coming up from the big lake this time of year?
We have both. There are definitely some fish that stay here year-round. There is everything that they need here as far as oxygen and habitat and all the food that they could eat. But the majority of them do migrate out into Lake Huron and then return back.
The pictures, the video I've seen, I see a lot of boats anchored up there just below, what is that, a dam or a bridge or something? Or can you catch them the entire length of the river?
There's definitely multiple areas in the river that they will congregate in and certain things that they like to hang out in. Primarily where I fish is it's at a Cloverland Electric powerhouse, and it's electric hydro dam, which is where the fisheries is within the building. So it's kind of like their home stream. So they like to return to that.
Is there a ladder around that dam? Can the fish get above there, or do they stack up right there?
They stack up right there. They can't pass through, so they'll stack right up there. I'm sure that there's some lamps that go through the St. Mary's locks, which is only about a quarter mile away, to get up into Lake Superior. But the vast majority of them are there at the powerhouse, and then also there's actually three more powerhouses here in the urban area of Sault Ste. Marie when you include Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and then also the rapids.
What a cool place to fish, though. They're below the dam, and they're by the locks and the bridge going across. It's a pretty, it's an urban fishery, but it's also a scenic fishery as well.
It very much so is, and we have freighters constantly going by, and most people aren't used to being this close to the freighters. And just the history with the cities and even the powerhouse that I mainly fish at, being the Cloverland Electric, it was finished construction in 1902.
Well, that explains that cool architecture.
Yes. They don't make buildings like that anymore.
Wow.
And that building is actually almost half the size of what it used to be.
Really?
Yeah, there was a big coal refinery, or the coal aspect, next door to it, which is now a big area where the freighters still dump like all of our road salt for in the wintertime for the whole thing.
So if you got freighters coming in there, Jason, you must have some pretty deep water.
Yep, we are fishing there at the powerhouse anywhere from 14 to 20 feet of water. And then we're right next to the channel. Oftentimes when you hook a fish, we'll float back from the powerhouse, and we're right in the shipping channel, so we're in 45 feet of water.
Looks like there's a pretty good current coming through there, too.
Yep. During peak flows, I believe it's 5 to 7 miles an hour. So it's swift in there, but it just adds more to the battle. It's fun.
Well, yeah, that kind of speed of current, I mean, that's Detroit River speed. Boat control's got to be important, but kind of tricky, I would imagine, too.
No, it's not too bad. What we usually do is we're very fortunate with Cloverland, and we're actually allowed to hook up to the wall. We have kind of a special grapple hook that we're allowed to use, and so it will hold us there, and then when we hook a fish, we'll unhook from the wall and float back with the current to fight the fish.
Well, that's interesting right there, because most places these days will not allow you to, number one, get close enough, and number two, certainly not hook up to their facilities.
Correct. And this is the only powerhouse here out of the 4 powerhouses that you are allowed to do that. I think Cloverland appreciates the economic value that this brings to the town. And we are surrounded by a lot of law enforcement entities that patrol regularly, so they keep a close eye on us and make sure everybody's doing right.
So are you actually, forgive my ignorance here, but are you on the edge of Canadian water, or is this all American where you are?
I'm fishing all American water. As the crow flies, we're probably a quarter mile from the Canadian line. When you're at that powerhouse, some of the other places, you're right close to the Canadian line as well.
So you nose your boat up to this Is it a dam? We call it a dam or a
it's a hydroelectric dam.
Okay, so you nose up to this dam. You actually, how close do you get before you hook up to it? I mean, are you reaching out? Are you reaching out and putting the hook on this thing to attach to it?
Yes. You go right up to it, and you just go slowly, and it's not a violent thing by any means. It's quite easy, and some of the turbines have less current running through than others, so you can definitely take your time, and it's very safe to do.
Then once you get set up there, Jason, how are you targeting these fish?
So primarily what I do is I fly fish. It's kind of my passion to do it. These fish are very much trout-like as far as their feeding habits. They're very opportunistic. For the most part, I'm throwing different nymphs that they're eating in the water, and I'm casting up into these turbine, I guess you would call them a turbine tube or a culvert, and that's where the fish are kind of hanging out, and letting my flies do their presentation past them.
So are your clients hardcore fly fishermen, or is this the type of thing with somebody with just a little bit of experience with a fly rod could do this?
Anybody can do this as long as they're open-minded. I actually find intermediate to very beginners or people that haven't ever fly fished before actually have a easier time with this sometimes. And you don't have to fly fish for them. You can use a spinning rod. I personally find the fly rod is easier. There's less line twist and tangles. Some years when our water is really high, it's can be tricky to use the fly rig, and sometimes a spinning rod is actually easier. But right now our water levels have been coming back down, and it's a lot of fun using the fly rod. And
it breaks your heart when you have to pull out those spinning rods, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell.
It's the connection with the fly rod and with the fly reel is just a lot more intimate.
Could you jig for these fish in there?
We do. We cast jigs at certain times. There are certain times when there aren't any insects hatching, and the fish key in on minnows, and so we're pitching jigs in there. We're casting spoons. Some people cast spinners, but it's pretty tough to cast the spinners in the current. It's very effective at times to troll for these fish, downriggers and planer boards and even lead core.
So is an Atlantic, is it a typical salmon in that when it hits, you know it? It's not subtle at all?
For the most part, yes. There's some times when they can be a little fussy and it's a little tiny tap. And then there's other times when they'll hit and they've got 50 yards of line out before you've set the hook. So, and sometimes they've jumped 3 times before you can get the boat unhooked from the powerhouse.
Wow. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. We're talking with Jason Karstens of True North Guide Service. He fishes out of the Sioux. You can find him online. Jason, primarily Facebook, Instagram, website. Where do we find you?
Facebook and Instagram. On Facebook, it's True North Guide Service, and then on Instagram, it's True North Guide Fishing.
All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Jason, talking about what to me sounds like a very unique and very cool fishery for Atlantics in the St. Mary's River, in the Sioux. Pick your tactic. How do you want to go after them? And I want to follow up with him, too, on his statement about he thinks Atlantics are the future of the Great Lakes salmon fishery. I've heard other guys say this. I want to learn more about that and more with Jason Karstens after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. And you can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. Well, this is 2020. That means 75 years. 75th anniversary Boning is celebrating right now. 75 years as a leader and innovator in the archery industry. Roland Boning was around when Fred Bear was around. They continue these days to innovate, coming up with new products for target archers and bow hunters as well. Join me in wishing them 75 more years of success, and check them out online if you would. Boning.com. That's BOHNING. Boning.com. Michigan-based Boning Archery, 75 years in the archery industry. Congrats on that. Talking now with Jason Carstens. He's a fishing guide in the Sioux. You can find him online at True North Guide Service. Jason, I find what you're doing interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about these Atlantics. Are they closer to a king? I mean, if the average casual salmon fisherman caught an Atlantic, would they know right away that it's not a king, or could it be easily confused?
Most of the time they get confused with lake run brown trout.
Really?
They often look like lake run brown trout, and I know sometimes I'll see the public will have questions online as to whether it's an Atlantic or a brown trout. And the easiest way to tell the difference with them is an Atlantic's mouth that jawline will never surpass the eye, where a brown trout goes past the eye. And that's the quickest way to identify the difference.
You said they're good fighters.
Very wonderful. Their Latin name is leaping fish. They don't give up, and they will put you to the test. They are a riot.
How are they on the table? Are they a good eating fish?
Personally, I think they're one of the best of the Great Lakes salmons to eat. They're wonderful. My family would eat it all the time if I let them. But they're wonderful.
Listen, speaking of your family, and I don't want to get into your business too much here, but I've seen your post about your two young girls and the fact that you've always got these girls out in the outdoors on these outdoor adventures. I appreciate what you're doing, Jason, in continuing this outdoor heritage we have here in Michigan. And to have two little girls tagging along with you all the time, that just looks like a riot.
Yeah, they are my fishing buddies. I don't even get to fish much anymore. It's I'm pretty much the net man for those two girls. They are if they see me hooking up my boat, they're get all excited, and then they'll usually pause and say, "Wait, are you doing a guide?" Sometimes they'll say yes, and they're pretty bummed out. So.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Someday when they get a little bit older, then I'll probably take them out as my first mates, and they can do the netting for the guiding. So.
And when you get older, Dad, they're going to take you out on their boat, and you can be the guy who just sits back and relaxes.
Boy, I hope so.
So, speaking of your guided trips here now, when is the best time? I mean, I'm thinking this is the time that the river's full of fish right now, isn't it?
This is actually a little bit of a slow time right now, but it's going to start picking back up a little bit. The Atlantics start really showing up July, end of June and July. And as the water warms up, it slows down a little bit. They want to seek a little bit colder and deeper water. Some years we don't have that issue, and there's more fish hanging out. This year has been very hot for us with not a lot of rain. And so our water temperature, even the week of July 4th, was 10 degrees warmer than normal. So it got things kicked off pretty quick for us.
So you're slowing down for the year now, or what are you saying?
Well, we're slowing down for a little bit, and then we'll get another push of fish that has not come up from Lake Huron yet. Along with here, shortly, probably within 2 weeks, we'll have our pink salmon really starting to show up, which is a lot of fun too, and we'll fish for those as well at the powerhouse. But
the pinks, I mean, they're not nearly in the class of an Atlantic, right? I mean, like in Alaska when I was up there, they hate the pinks. They think of them as a trash fish. Now, they're not that bad, but are they just more fun to catch than anything? Is that what it is?
I tell you what, the pinks that are up here, I use the same rods, the same 7-weight fly rods for them, and they'll give you all the battle. I'll make your arms tired by the end of the day with the pink salmon.
Really?
Table fare wise, I don't care for the pink salmon, but usually when they're coming up here, they're pretty well in their spawn colors, and so they're starting to lose some of their oily fats and stuff, which is what kind of makes salmon taste good, during the summer. So, but they are scrapper fish, and a lot of fun to catch.
Jason, I appreciate you reaching out to me. I wanted to let people know about your True North guide service there on the St. Mary's River. And sooner or later, our paths will cross, and I will look forward to it. In the meantime, I would encourage people to book a trip with you for a very cool experience and have fun with those girls in the outdoors.
Oh, we do. And thank you. And the invitation is always there, Mike.
I appreciate
everything that you do for the outdoors.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate what you do in keeping the folks of the Sioux safe. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews getting ready for their big outdoor weekend. Plus, in the meantime, they've got a monthly magazine to get out. All that coming up here in the first hour yet of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Tawas on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us on the other side of the state in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Anglerquest headquarters. And Linwood Beach right now, I think, is home to a photo and video shoot for the folks at Anglerquest, unveiling their 2022 lineup. How cool is that? Linwood Beach Marina, I tell you, beautiful facilities, an excellent location, outstanding service, great people. What more can you ask for? 4 seasons of hunting and fishing fun on Saginaw Bay, and Linwood Beach can be your jumping off place. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. I want to turn our attention now to the folks at Michigan's premier outdoor publication, Woods-n-Waternews, woods-n-waternews.com. Tom Campbell, one of the guys behind the scenes, and actually not behind the scenes this time of year. He's at the forefront as they get ready for their big outdoor weekend. Tom, how's it going?
Just great, Mike. We're doing fantastic. We got a little problem with the electricity over in this area right now, but we'll make do. Kind of working out of the tailgate of your pickup truck, but that's okay.
Tom, is it from more storms, or is there something more going on with this whole power outage?
I gotta believe we heard a lot of sirens and stuff yesterday, so I would anticipate either somebody might have hit a transformer or maybe a transformer caught on fire, because it was a beautiful day yesterday. We lost it in the afternoon, so I'm sure there's other reasons. But it's when you're in this business and you got a deadline, it's tough, and especially today when everything you do is electronic. So we're going to be probably burning some midnight oil when we get that power back and make our deadline for Wednesday. So this weekend, as we're speaking, everybody will be able to find that September issue at their favorite newsstand or hopefully in their mail, and they'll get all the information on that outdoor weekend. That's September 10th, 11th, and 12th at the Eastern Michigan State Fairgrounds in Emma City, and plus some great stories in this issue. We're excited about the September issue, which we always are because it's that pre-deer season issue, so we've got a lot of great stuff in there.
And if I remember right, isn't there it's almost, I don't want to say a flyer, but there's a bunch of information about the show in this edition, right?
Exactly right. We do a special insert right in the center, so it gives you, breaks down everything, gives you all the information on what we've got going, which, it's going to be similar to the years past, so we're excited about that. Of course, we've got people like the Milt Wilcox coming back with the Ultimate Air Dogs, and he's encouraging, we've talked before about this, he's encouraging everyone this year, too, that they're really going to gear it towards first-time jumpers. So people that want to jump their dogs for the first time or get that practice in, not so much competition related. You can come out and have a good time and try to jump your dog. But and of course, on top of that, we've got their ever popular puppy tent, which will be teeming with a lot of beautiful puppies this year. And you can go in and see the owners, talk to the owners, see the puppies, see the usually the parents or the mother, and eye-to-eye contact, which we love, promoting. And for those people that don't really agree with our puppy tent, it's buyer beware. I mean, you're right there. You can't get any more personal with the person you're buying a dog from. You're not buying it from a stranger,
Right,
so
right.
You can talk to them and you can get all the details, in which we encourage you to. You should never walk out of that puppy tent with a puppy and you can't remember the guy you bought it from.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So,
and this year you are opening on Friday a little bit early, right?
we are. We're opening at 3 o'clock. Hopefully we can spread that crowd out, catch some of the people heading north on a Friday afternoon, or just give people more time to get through on a Friday, because sometimes that 5 to 9 isn't quite long enough. By the time you hit a couple of our great seminars, we got a couple hours to get around to all the great vendors. So, yeah, we try to bump it up to 3 o'clock. We'll, based on, the showgoers' input. So, and then other than that, we're open Saturday 9 to 7 all day long, and then Sunday we open at 9 and go to 5 again. So there's plenty of time to get in, and we're encouraging youth hunters to, hit the woods Saturday morning and then come to the afternoon show, and then you have time to get back in the woods for the Saturday evening hunt too. So.
Yeah, I'm actually really appreciative of that early opener on Friday, because Friday I'll be down to see you guys, and then Saturday I'm going to be in Clare for Jay's for their 50th anniversary. Sure. So I get a couple of extra hours with you guys on Friday. So thank you for that, Tom. Appreciate it.
Oh, that's perfect. Very good. Yes, I'm glad. It'll be good to see you too.
Well, and it'll just be good to see everybody right after having to take a year off. I mean, the excitement is so high. So many people are excited about this. Is everything locked in now? Are you still in a state of fluidity or even flux?
It's kind of up and down. It's a roller coaster. I think we talked about last time. It's people now are realizing, well, maybe I better get to the show. We're getting to some of those last minute people that, money might have been tight getting through this COVID, but now they realize, hey, if I can see 12, 13,000 sportsmen in 2 days, 3 days, maybe I've been
hard to pass up. Yep. All right, Tom. Well, listen, good luck with the power situation, and good luck with putting the final touches, the finishing touches on the show. The website, woods-n-waternews.com, and the Big Outdoor Weekend, always the first full weekend in September after Labor Day. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, I will check in with Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods, getting ready for their 50th anniversary celebration, and more in Hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Anglerquest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. You can hear the show on radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and I always talk about the fact that this is first and foremost a radio show, a syndicated outdoor radio show heard on more than 24 AM and FM stations here in the great state of Michigan. And I think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine radio, if you can, is on your local radio station. You know, you can get your local news, weather, sports there, plus the radio stations get the content of the show before the podcast is uploaded. And I keep promoting radio because there really aren't many syndicated statewide outdoor radio shows here in Michigan, but there are a lot of podcasts. Now, I love podcasts. I embrace podcasts. But again, the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine radio, if you can, is on your local radio station. But isn't it nice to know that there's a podcast available if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal? Where do you hear the podcast? Well, you can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music. It's on Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Odyssey, and I even put it on YouTube. I know, doesn't make any sense, right, to put an audio program on YouTube, but I do, and people watch/listen to it there. I also, as long as we're talking about podcasts, each month I produce podcasts for Shadow Hunter Blinds, Polar Craft Boats, Killer Food Plots, Offshore Tackle, Anglerquest Boats, and Jay Sporting Goods. Now, when we get done with the show today, we're going to record an Anglerquest podcast with Brad Dupuy of Anglerquest, announcing and unveiling the new 2022 models and some big changes. And then speaking of Jays, we recorded a Jays podcast last week, but the transition to Jays is we got Jeff Poet on hold. Jeff is a friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. The Poet family started Jay's Sporting Goods. It was Jeff's dad, Jay, who started Jay's Sporting Goods. And they are celebrating their 50th anniversary. There's a big celebration coming up in September. I was talking to you in the first hour about how I will be there on Saturday to help celebrate that. But I'm telling you, this is one of the best stories I've ever heard. It's a man with a dream, Jay Poet, a love for the outdoors, a dream of starting this company where he could share this love with others, and look what it's grown into. Michigan's biggest and original family-owned outdoor superstore. Now, 2 stores, one in Clare and one in Gaylord. And why, you might ask, why does Avery push Jays so hard? Why does Avery promote Jays? Why does he talk with such fond terms for the folks at Jays? Because Jay Sporting Goods was the company that allowed me to do what I am today. It was the folks at Jays who said, we believe in you. We will help you get things started. And for that reason, I am as loyal to the folks at Jays as you can possibly be, including Jeff Poet, who is the man in charge at Jays these days, who is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jeff, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am good, Mike. Thanks for having me on and all the kind words. That was overwhelming.
Well, I mean, listen, Avery and Jays and the Poet family go way back. I mean, that's just the way. It's just the way it is. But I could not be more proud to work with a company that I am with Jays.
Well, it goes both ways. We're super proud of you, and we promote you, and we just have had that relationship over the years, and it's just been a great one, Mike. We enjoy it as much as you do.
Well, and I appreciate that. But the story of Jays, I mean, you've told this story on the air before, but let's use this opportunity to tell it again. How did Jays come about? How did you guys get started?
Well, we use 1971, and we have for a number of years as a starting date. My dad worked at Dow Corning for years and was trading stuff, at lunchtime or break time out in the parking lot, which you can't do anymore.
That's for sure.
You just can't do that stuff, and I get it. But anyway, and it just kind of transitioned. He was always kind of upgrading what he had or getting more, and certain events happened. And one of the big ones was that my mom came home. She worked at a Rexall drugstore in downtown Clare here, and she came home, and the china cabinet was missing. And he had traded that off for some reloading equipment or something. My mom tells the story and I always laugh. And anyway, it was the gist of the conversation was that he needed to do something to support his habit, and that was the end of the furniture going down the road for things that he was doing. So, he buttoned up our one-car garage that we were in a residential area, and it was next to our house, and it kind of started. He started doing that out of the garage, and then I believe Dow Corning went on strike one year, and that allowed him the time to do more of that and focus on it, and it just kind of started from there and evolved.
Well, there was the. I remember the Blue Store in Clare. In fact, that building is still there, isn't it?
No, Mike, it's gone.
Oh, it is gone now.
Yeah, it was it's a long story, but there was a little creek that run next to it, and the Drain Commission needed to clean that out, and they we were out of the building, obviously. We were just using it for storage, but they claimed their rights, we infringed on the drainage section there, so we ended up selling it to them, and it was okay. We got storage out here closer, but that building is gone now. So my brother JJ and my mom all kind of walked through there on the last before we finalized the deal, and it brought back some really good memories.
Oh, I bet it did.
Anyway, it's just going to be green space now.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of those early days. For a while, Jay's operated out of your garage, and you were, Jeff, you were involved in this since you were a little kid, right?
Well, I grew up in it, and in the early 70s, I was only 8 or 9 years old, and, prior to that, all this stuff was kind of going on, and my grandma lived 2 doors down, and she had a big barn, and so when the business started to evolve in that garage, and Dad ran out of room. He started using my grandma's barn for some storage, and of course he didn't have time to run down there, to get something. So he started out with, I recall very vividly, gun boxes. So he would put the gun boxes down there and not take up the space in the garage. Well, when he sold a gun, he'd give me the serial number and the make, and then I had to go down to Grandma's and find the box and bring it back. And then it moved to things like shot and heavier stuff. Then I got a wagon that I could pull and haul stuff back and forth. So security was a little light, too.
A little different.
I could have got bumped off between the two houses there.
And I remember your mom telling stories, too, about, boy, if somebody was at the shop, adjacent, if somebody was in the garage doing business with Jay, I didn't know they might end up just staying for dinner. So I had to be ready for people just to stop by and have dinner with us as well as buying guns from us.
Yeah, my mom had to always be ready because in the garage there were no bathroom facilities or anything, and when the employees that we had, one or two of them, Mom would just make sandwiches for everybody, and they'd be on the dining room table there that you walked by if someone had to use the bathroom, or the employees just come in and sat down and eat. Well, most of them that were going to the bathroom saw sandwiches. Well, everybody knew my mom and Dad, so Dad would say, "Oh, just sit down and have a bite to eat with me here." And it drove my mom nuts, but she was always prepared and has done a wonderful job. She still comes in today, typically 5 days a week, believe it or not. So
I do believe it, absolutely. And how did the move to north of town happen? And now we look at it and think, well, that's no big deal. But I know from hearing the story, the decision to do this was a big step at that time, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a real big deal. So, we'd grown the business in the downtown location. It was just thriving, and parking was an issue. We had 14 parking spots in front of the Blue Building, and people were starting to park on the road or around the block, and And what really kind of was the tipping point, if they were parking on the road, some of our customers were starting to get ticketed, and we just couldn't have that. So we knew we had to do something. And at the time, there's a lot of stuff out there now that kind of draws you north to that exit area. Now, we're another mile north of that yet. At the time, there was only the Marathon, and so there's the gas station, and I think maybe McDonald's. There were just two things out there, and everybody said, Jay, you need to stay in town. You need to stay in town where the traffic is, and there's nobody that goes north there. And we just, it was a mile north of all that, and it was just a hayfield. But he had the vision, and our customers have been very loyal and followed us out here.
A visionary indeed. We're talking with Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods, the website jaysportinggoods.com, jaysportinggoods.com, celebrating their 50th anniversary. Coming up on Wednesday night, September 8th, we are doing a Wednesday night live at Jay's, and then that following weekend is a big 50th anniversary celebration. We'll talk more with Jeff about that. Check out the website, jaysportinggoods.com, jaysportinggoods.com. More with Jeff Poet right here on Outdoor Magazine after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. I will be passing through the Sioux now in just a few days on the way to White River, Ontario, Canada for a bear hunt. I am so excited about that. Keep an eye on my Facebook page and Instagram feeds for how we are doing up there. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. That's mucc.org, mucc.org. And a reminder, if you use the promo code MIKE, all caps, M-I-K-E, you can save 25% on your MUCC membership, either signing up for the first time or your renewal. Go to mucc.org, use the promo code MIKE, all caps, and save 25%. We're talking now with Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods. Jeff is the guy in charge at Jay's these days. It was his dad, Jay, who started Jay's Sporting Goods. Jay's is getting ready to celebrate their 50th anniversary. As I said before the break, we are going to do a Wednesday night live from Jay's on Wednesday night, September 8th. And then, Jeff, that following weekend is what you guys are really kind of setting aside as your official celebration of the 50th, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We're pretty excited about it. Normally it's a sale. With product availability, we're making it a celebration, so we're going to have a lot of fun. And we're going to have some stuff on sale, but it was just, with COVID and distribution, and I think everybody realizes, certain products are hard to get. We just kind of rebranded it a little bit for celebration, so we're giving tons of stuff away and a lot of things going on. It's going to be a great time.
Things are still tight, some types of gear, Jeff?
Yes, it is. Some stuff we get and we're well stocked in, and then we have some gaping holes yet, and no estimated time of when we'll get them, or at least if it is, it's like way out there. So it's still difficult.
Not just for you guys, but for everybody in the industry, I would imagine.
Yeah, we are all in the same boat right now because it's the same problem. We just had a meeting with several other dealers that we roundtable stuff with, and everybody seems to be kind of in the same boat together.
I would think actually though that your standing in the industry, the fact you've been around for a long time, and you guys know the players at the national level, that's got to actually give you a little bit of a benefit. If anybody's going to have product, it's going to be Jay's.
Yeah, Mike, it really does. It's just those long-term relationships, like the ones we have with you. It's just we've known each other, we've done business, we financially take care of each other back and forth correctly, and it pays off. When things are tough and to get product or whatever the issues are, those relationships help when we're going through what we're going through right now. So yes, we probably do not get the same proportion as we typically would. We get an extra portion a lot of the time, so we're very grateful for that.
So other than some SKUs still being tough to get, are things back to normal at the two stores these days, or are you still feeling the effect of COVID in some ways?
The traffic level, as far as our customers coming in the store, is more normalized now. But the product is what's really, I'm very nervous about the early youth hunt that's coming up. It's like September 10th. It's right kind of in this whole deal we're talking about, and a lot of the calibers we don't have for ammunition. That's my biggest concern is ammunition. If a lot of people have bought firearms over the past 18 plus months, and ammunition is still a challenge, and because it's been so focused on home defense and personal protection in that, they haven't been making the hunting loads. So my concern right now is on the hunting ammunition.
Yeah. Well, but things change daily, right? I mean, in talking with your guys there, it's like you don't know what's going to show up until it shows up.
Yeah. We got a pallet of this or a pallet of that. We're just, kind of off the chart great. We'll get it out there. It goes pretty quick. But, again, we're starting to fill those holes, so that's nice to see. And throughout the rest of the store, we're in pretty good shape. The other departments, fishing has done a great job keeping up and keeping stuff in there, and our camping. And it still probably remains the firearms are our uphill battle yet.
I want to go back to talking about how Jay's came to be where it is today. When your dad made the decision to move north of town, the building he put up at the time doesn't really look like what you're working out of these days, does it?
No. When we moved out here, we moved from like 8,500 square feet to 36,000. So, like 4 times, and we just couldn't believe how much space we were going to have. And we've got some photos when we opened it up. Everything was spaced out. Well, that was in 88. Well, by 94, we're busting at the seams, and we added on another 2/3 almost. Today we're at a little over 100,000 square feet, to give you an idea, from the 36. So there's been a couple of small additions.
A couple of small additions. And another addition down the road to the north, too.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we juggled that one in there, too, and that one's grown. We went from about the same size, that 40,000 to 100, we opened that location in 2000, and we moved into the larger building in 2015. And
I guess, you and I are taking this for granted, but we're talking about Gaylord.
That's a Gaylord location, yes, I'm sorry. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I also find it interesting that the Poet family has been so actively involved in what's going on around you. You say the community, I kind of hate that term in some ways because it has different connotations to different people. But I look at what you guys have done at, say, Mid-Michigan Community College. I mean, there's a Poet family outdoor center there?
Yeah. They what an honor. We didn't really see it coming, but they built a new structure, and it's the Family Outdoor Center. So we were pretty surprised. It's one of the events, and what led to that is we have a night, usually in the spring in April sometime, where on a Sunday night when we close at 5, we reopen and have this event we call it Northern Traditions, and it creates scholarships and goes into a foundation for kids and scholarships and some other things. But anyway, we've been doing that. We've raised like $1.3 million over the course of 10 plus years. And so I think as a thank you, we got that. And, we just don't normally toot our horn about those things. We do a lot of things in the community, but it's just what we do and kind of how we do it.
Yeah, I know. But you guys do a lot, and I think, I want my listeners to know the quality and the caliber of the people that you guys are, because as you say, you don't often tell people what you're involved in, so I congratulate you on that.
Yeah, that's just not why we do it. We do it because it's the right thing to do and be a good, steward and a business in the community. We have that responsibility.
You know, this love for the outdoors and this history and heritage of the outdoors. My family shares that. Your family shares that. Jay's shares that. But I want to talk about this for a minute. When you look around at the world today and the outdoor world today, and I mean your involvement in the Michigan Wildlife Council and trying to make sure this outdoor heritage continues on, what do you see, Jeff? Do you see this connection as strong as it was, or is society in some ways getting away from this a little bit?
You know, Mike, I think it depends on where you look. Definitely there are things that we still battle, and those battles are getting tougher. But then on the same thing, when we went through this COVID and to see the participation in fishing and hunting like just soar, it gives you what you need to keep fighting the fight, you know, like we are winning no matter what the other side is trying to do to keep us from hunting and fishing and those privileges and rights that we have. And then you see what's happening because it's what you talk about on your radio show. It's what we talk about. You get a youngster or someone that hasn't, a gal that hasn't done a lot of activity in the outdoors, and you turn them on to that, and you see that twinkle in their eye or that success of catching a fish or hitting the target, and it's just worth it. And it's just a great feeling, Mike.
What are we going to see in the future for Jay's, Jeff? Are there going to be additional big outdoor superstores? Is the future buying things online? I mean, what's the next 10 years look like for you guys?
You know, I think it's a mix. I don't know about building physical buildings. You know, I'm at an age where, you know, there's some people coming up that are going to have to share in that decision making, and so that's pretty key. And how they view where's the shopping taking place, brick and mortar, online. I don't know. I don't know. We always kind of keep our eye on the ball to take care of the customers that we got, but yet we know that those folks too are buying differently, so we try and accommodate that. Sometimes we find out it's not in our wheelhouse, and we keep working at it to make it better so that it is, because we don't want to lose those customers because of that. But what we do is the brick and mortar, walk in the front door and take care of you, because we can put people on the floor that know products and that they're probably hunting and fishing right alongside. So that's what we've always done well, and we won't lose sight of that. But we also know there's some changes in people's buying habits.
Yeah, well, and you've always told me that, you know, one of the keys is having the right people. You know, I know Jay's as one thing, but people who come in off the street, they only know Jay's as the person who helps them at the counter, right? So that's a key part of this whole equation.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely key, because they don't see Jeff, and they don't see my mom and my brother on the floor. They could, because we're out there a fair amount, but for the most part, you're not going to see us. You're going to see someone that's taking care of you in, you know, the archery department or the hunting or guns or fishing or camping, whatever it may be that you're buying. And so we really try and hire the right people that have the right demeanor, that love being in the outdoors. That's important, but we give them the training so that they can, the best that we can, because there is some turnover right now, but we just want to make sure they're prepared to answer our customers' questions and guide them in making the best decisions about the equipment that they're purchasing. So,
well, Jeff Poet, congrats on a 50-year celebration. We know it's actually been more than 50 years, but this is the 50-year
right.
celebration. Wednesday night live at your place on Wednesday night, September 8th. The following weekend, a big celebration. We'll talk more about that, but congrats on everything, and
thank you.
Keep up the good work, and I appreciate you guys working with me for so many years.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods, the website jaysportinggoods.com. That's jaysportinggoods.com, celebrating 50 years as a family-owned, Michigan-based outdoor superstore. How cool is that? We'll take a break. When we come back, Dan Kennedy of the DNR checks in on the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. I don't know anything about it, but we will learn more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM, and many other fine stations as well. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. From plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, cooling, ductwork cleaning, you name it, everything to keep the mechanicals of your house running smoothly, reliably, to keep you comfortable, warm, or cool, depending on the season, and dry. The folks from Wilds can help you out. Their slogan is whatever it takes. And I've seen that. I've seen these guys do whatever it takes. We did some remodeling of our back room, a 3-season room, and they had to come out and take out this unit that is a heating and air conditioning unit and put it back in. And, you know, I threw it at them at the last minute, and they were able to make it work. They took care of it, as they have for so many other jobs, and they've done a wonderful job for me, and I know they will for you as well. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. Right now, I want to turn our attention to something that I honestly don't know much about. It's the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. Dan Kennedy of the DNR is along with us to help us understand this. Dan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Mike.
Well, thank you for joining us. Tell me more about this.
Sure. The Recovering America's Wildlife Act is a new piece of legislation in Congress. It's been introduced in the House and the Senate, and it is the largest, most significant investment in fish and wildlife conservation in a generation. You know, the bill would dedicate nearly $1.4 billion with a B dollars in support of fish and wildlife conservation for proactive efforts led by the states, territories, tribal nations to prevent species from becoming threatened or endangered.
Wow. What could this mean to us here in Michigan, Dan?
Yeah, so in Michigan, we have a draft strategy of how we would implement this program if the bill was to pass. And that would mean an additional just over $26 million in federal funding annually to fish and wildlife conservation in our state.
Would this go toward fish and game species or non-game species or across the board?
So the bill is written towards implementing our state wildlife action plans, which were congressionally mandated back in the early 2000s. And it's primarily a focus on non-game. But as those of us who've done wildlife management over the years, we understand that any on-the-ground conservation benefits both game and non-game.
Is there how likely is this to go through? I realize you're not a political expert, but what are you hearing? Is this pretty much a done deal, or is this one of these things that could fall apart at the last minute?
So you're right. I'm not a political expert, but I will share with you that there's confidence amongst the national coalition that this Congress is the best opportunity that this bill has had to pass. It was first introduced by Ms. Dingle from Michigan and Mr. Fortenberry from Nebraska 5 years ago. So it's been through a couple Congresses already. And during that time, we were able to gain some momentum. It passed out of committee in the House last year during last Congress. And so the hope is to continue momentum this year. And a huge milestone is that Senator Heinrich from New Mexico and Senator Blunt from Missouri introduced RAWA into the Senate this year. So now it's both in the Senate and the House, and with an administration that supports this piece of legislation.
Would this be a one-shot deal or an ongoing program?
This would be, it's designed similar to the Pittman-Robertson funding that comes, that's been driving conservation, fish and wildlife conservation since 1937. It's just a once-in-a-generation, kind of like the Pittman-Robertson funds were. So it will be an annual funding source for the state agencies to implement our state wildlife action plans.
So this is a big deal.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. It's $26 million a year every year.
So Pittman-Robertson, I see that more toward game species, and so the RAWA would be non-game. Is that an oversimplification?
It's a bit of an oversimplification, but for, discussing today, I think that that's okay. Our PR, Pittman Robertson dollars, and license fee dollars have been the primary driver of fish and wildlife conservation for most states, for decades. And this adds a new funding source to give state fish and wildlife biologists flexibility to manage for all wildlife species is probably how I'd say it, Mike.
Any timetable on this, Dan? When will you know more?
I believe that, Congress, who knows what's going to happen in Congress,
sure.
But my understanding is that there'll be a committee hearing in the House sometime this fall. And so we're hopeful that during this Congress, the bill can make it and pass out of both the House and the Senate and go in front of the president for approval.
Perfect, Dan, and hopefully you will keep us informed on this, and I'll look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan Kennedy of the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Now I know more about RAWA, Recovering America's Wildlife Act, and I appreciate Dan Kennedy bringing me up to speed on that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, wrap up this second hour of the show with the Security Credit Union Ask Avery segment. This time, it's about bear hunting, and it's not a question from one person, but it's kind of a compilation of several people who have reached out to me with my thoughts, at least on how I like to bear hunt. I'll talk about that and more. And then in hour number 3, we're talking about salmon fishing in the rivers with Tim Roller, coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. WTRX, that soft spot in my heart because they were my first affiliate station, and it's wonderful to be back on the air in Flint on WTRX. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Hey, your money's important, right? You work hard for it, and you want to work with an institution that takes it seriously, that takes this relation seriously. Security Credit Union takes your money very seriously, and they love to work with outdoorsmen and women. The way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. It can be a question directed at me that you want me to answer, or it can be something you want me to pass through to somebody else, MUCC or DNR or whatever. But this week, it's kind of a compilation of several questions that I've had over the past couple of weeks about bear hunting. Questions about how I bear hunt, why I like to bear hunt the way I do, and why I make the choices I do. And I'll tell you first, right off the bat, listen, I'm not an expert bear hunter. I don't pretend to be at all. But I've probably I've spent a fair amount of time over the last several years bear hunting, and it's something that I really love to do. So the questions are, Avery, why do you choose to bear hunt over bait instead of run bears with dogs? Well, there's really no reason. I'm not one of those people who dislikes the houndsman at all. I have a lot of respect for the houndsman. It's something that I haven't done, but I do plan to in the future. I've got invitations from several of the houndsmen to go out with them, and I will take you guys up on it. But there's something about the intimacy of hunting over bait that I really like. I like the up close and personal. I like the time to see the animal, to judge the animal, to try to get a sex on it, whether it's a boar or a sow, to judge the size of it. And people say, aren't you taking the easy way out by hunting over bait? Well, I don't know, maybe. But the truth of it is, in northern Michigan or in Ontario, the idea of a spot and stalk hunt, the bush is so thick, the woods are so thick that it's really not an effective way to hunt. The thing about bait is, bait brings animals into a given spot at a given range which I, as a hunter, like. I originally started hunting bears from tree stands. Now, that's another question I get. Why do you hunt from a ground blind instead of a tree stand? I have nothing against tree stands at all. When I started out bear hunting, I was hunting from a tree stand. The thing about a tree stand always is it gives you better visibility. You're up in the air. You can see farther. You can see what's coming in. And I like that. And when I first started hunting bears, I liked the fact that I wasn't really at their level. I liked the fact that I was 15 feet in the air. It made me feel a little bit safer. When I made the transition over to hunting from a ground blind, it was because I wanted another challenge. I wanted to be at ground level. I wanted to see if I could... and think about tree stands, too. Think about this. When you're bear hunting and you're sitting out there for 6 hours... and you've got a bear that's standing just off out of sight, but he's sitting back there and he's watching this bait and he's waiting to see if there's anything going on. If you're sitting up in the tree stand, you're out in the open, you're exposed, and you make any motion at all, a bear could see that. If you're getting swarmed by mosquitoes and black flies and you move your hand just a little bit to wipe a mosquito out of your eye, a bear could pick up on that. Well, if you're sitting in a ground blind... Number one, ground blinds are extremely safe, right? You're never going to fall out of a ground blind. Ground blinds conceal your movement. They protect you from the elements. If it's raining, you can sit there comfortably in a ground blind. You can put a thermocell in a ground blind, and all the mosquitoes and black flies will leave you alone. I put a thermocell in a ground blind before and watched it not only drive all the mosquitoes out, but you'll see a mosquito come to the window, he'll smell that thing and turn around and leave. And I have never, ever had a bear be spooked by the smell of a thermocell that I know of. In fact, I've seen bears walk through the smoke from a thermocell to come into a bait. So I don't think it negatively affects them at all. But I like being at ground level. I like being eye to eye with these animals. I've more times than I could even tell you, I've had bears walk right by the blind, so close you could hear them breathe as they walk by. I've had them walk up to the blind and look in like, hey, and we know there's something in there. What's going on? And it's not aggressive. It's just curiosity. I've had them sit next to the blind and huff a little bit. It's like, whoo, whoo. They know something's up, but they don't quite know what it is. It's exciting. It's not so cool when you set up a blind and they come in and they tear it up. And I've had this happen every year. Two schools of thought. Do you put up a blind the first time you hunt, or do you put up a blind early so they can get used to it? I like to put them up early so they can get used to it. But the challenge of that is the bears are going to know there's something different. They will come, they will investigate that blind, and oftentimes they will chew on it a little bit or they'll claw it up a little bit. I've lost a lot of blinds to curious bears, but I've never lost one while I was sitting in it. That's the key. I love bear hunting. I love everything about bear hunting. And I am so blessed to be able to go back to White River and next year hunt here in Michigan because I'll be up for a Michigan tag. As always, thank you to our friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org, securitycu.org. If you have a question, send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Anglerquest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. Here in the studio a little bit early this week. I mean, from your perspective, it doesn't matter at all because you'll be hearing the show at the same time. But as you are hearing this, I am in White River, Ontario, Canada, on a bear hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. This is an opportunity that I didn't think was going to happen. But with COVID closing the borders for a year and a half, into Ontario, we didn't think we were going to be able to do it. But when there was word was opened that the border would be, when the word got out that the border would be opened on the 9th, Ron said, okay, it's a last minute deal, but we will make it happen. So as you are hearing this, that's where I am. You can follow my progress on my Facebook page and on Instagram as well. But I'm here in the studio doing some time shifting a little bit earlier than usual. And in fact, in the studio right now, Pat Johnston and I just opened up a bag of the Mike Avery Hunter Sticks from Michigan Brand Meat. And it's like, I just want to keep eating those things. They're excellent. Absolutely excellent. But I get off topic here. What a great time of year this is, isn't it? I mean, there's late summer coming into fall, so many different outdoor activities and adventures that are out there just waiting for us to take advantage of them. Hunting and fishing, it doesn't matter. It's getting to be the time of year when things are just going to start busting wide open. Last week here on the show, I had Captain Bobby Sullivan on from Icebreaker Charters, talking about one of his clients catching a new state record king salmon. If you didn't hear that conversation, it's a great story. 47 pounds and change. What a huge king that is. Man, that's a big fish. But it got me thinking about how a few years ago, my buddy Tim Roller, when he had Ultimate Fly Fishing, Ultimate Outfitters, Ultimate Outfitters, had a client of his on the Manistee, and they caught a world record brown trout. Man. And then I got thinking about all the time that, times that Tim and I had discussed fishing for salmon in the rivers with crankbaits and how cool and exciting that is. And I thought, you know what? Rather than just have Avery reminisce about this and think about it in my mind, I'll see if Tim was available to talk with me on the show, and he is. And these days, his time is very precious, and it's tough to get in touch with Tim. So, Tim, I appreciate you making some time to talk with me today. How have you been, my friend?
I am doing well. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, the pleasure is mine. Thinking about that, first of all, a 47-pound king. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and it is crazy, but we always say this, and I said this after we got that brown. There's bigger out there. That lake is a factory of incredible fish, and while we've seen better days, there's always a bigger one out there. So, congrats to Bobby and his client. That is a phenomenal fish, but don't be surprised if in the next year or two that record goes down.
Well, because all records do, right? And as you say, nobody's going to catch the biggest fish that's out there. There's always something bigger out there, as was proven with your big brown.
Yeah, and I'm convinced that there's a bigger brown out there as well. So it's just a matter of finding them, and if he's going to come on this side or the Wisconsin side. But I would say you're going to see that both those fish probably in not too long be broke.
And Bobby and his client caught that out. Bobby and his crew caught that out in the water of Lake Michigan. But wouldn't it be something to hook into a fish like that in the river?
We've hooked some pretty big salmon in the river. I always go back to the fall of '99 because that was, whatever you want to say, the stars aligned or whatever, and the lake and everything went right. The age class that year was absolutely spectacular for both salmon and steelhead. That fall in the river was one that might not ever be replicated. I mean, we caught multiple kings. I don't even know. I'd have to go back and look at my records. Like so many kings over 30 pounds that year, it was ridiculous. And a few of them pushing 35, which those are big fish in the river. Those are big fish anywhere. So, I can't imagine, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, those fish are, and here's the thing, that fish that Bobby caught, in a few more weeks, that fish probably would have topped 50 pounds. So, how crazy is that?
That is crazy. Wow. And if you're saying a 30-pound king is huge, you get them out in the big lake and you've got your hands full. I can't imagine hooking that size fish in the river. I mean, what are your odds of bringing a fish like that to the boat? Or do you, what's your catch rate versus your hookup rate?
Well, there's an awful lot of variables there. Obviously, where we're at in the river, what time of the run, because those fish, spend a lot of energy coming up. And for all intents and purposes, they generally stop eating, not too long after they enter the river, if not before. So they're losing. They don't have that firepower that they have in a lake. Now we get them real fresh in there, and those fish are explosive. And so it depends, again, on where we're at. And then a lot of it has to do with the person on the rod, the amount of experience in fighting big fish in close quarters. And a lot of times it's just getting the confidence to trust the gear, because you really got to lean on them. I mean, you just got, I tell clients all the time, break the rod, try and break the rod. and a lot of times that's what you had to do with those fish. They're just war horses, and so much power. And when you get them in close quarters like that, you really got to get on them fast.
For the longest time, people, when they wanted to fish for kings in the river, it was spawn or whatever. And I'm not saying, Tim Roller, that you came up with the concept of casting crankbaits for kings in the river, but you certainly did an awful lot to fine-tune it and a lot to promote it. How did you come up with this concept? What made you think of it?
Well, I just got sick of the rhetoric that these fish wouldn't bite. They wouldn't. And here's the first thing, right? Everybody asks, well, are they eating it or are they just attacking it? I could care less. I could honestly care less.
Yeah.
I've asked a bunch of them. They refuse to answer. But the bottom line is, if they grab that thing, I don't care what their motive is. I just want them to grab it. So I could never get past the point that literally, because we catch fish that were in the lake that morning, and you could see this wave of fish come in, and you knew they were, when we were fishing in the lower rivers, you knew they were just coming in. So why would they hit something out in the lake hours earlier, but not now? And yet that's what we were always told. Once they come into the rivers, they were done. I just didn't buy it. Years and years of it, and I finally said, screw this, enough of it. I'm going to try. I just started trying stuff, and basically wanted to mimic what a lot of the guys were doing right out there at the pier heads and in the boats, trolling stick bait, spoons, whatever. Had to make it somewhat easy for us to do in the river, so spoons were a little bit out, but the stick baits really intrigued me. And
why were spoons out? Because you couldn't cast them? Well,
just from a casting perspective, and getting that movement on them, I felt like I could cover way more water with the stick baits, with the crankbaits, and they were going to be easier for people. I could change up more. It just, at the time, it made more sense to me, and that's what I tried first, and poof. I don't want to say the rest is history, but kind of the rest is history.
Well, kind of, yeah, the rest is history. Was it obvious when you tried this the first time? It was like, holy cow, or did this take a while to fine-tune your approach?
So the first time, I still remember the first day I went out there trying this, and this is a long time ago. But the first day I decided, I think I got like half a dozen crankbaits and stick baits and tried different sizes and colors and thought, we're just going to try this. I went over on a crystal bluebird sky, not a cloud in the sky, bright sun. I want to say it was like third, fourth week of August. I mean, pretty close to this time frame. And just wanted to go out there and try. It was the only boat that I saw that day I put in, and I didn't make it a half mile down the river. I don't think I made it a quarter mile down the river doing this, and I hooked up like 6 fish. And the first one was probably within the first 10, 15 minutes of doing it. And as soon as that fish hit, I could have cared less if I landed it, if anything. I just remember that feeling of, well, this changes everything. Like when that fish hit and I hooked him up and he was going crazy, and I saw that fish come in and that thing was just sharked, just straight across inside his jaws. I mean, like practically swallowed the thing up to the lip. I just kept thinking that this changes everything. This changes everything. And then it was just kind of the rest of that morning was fish, 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 fish. And it just every time was, I know I was, if anybody would have been around, they would have thought I was crazy because I was literally just laughing every time one of these fish would hit, because it was so, at the time for me, it was business changing. It was like, it just changed my entire future that morning as far as these fish were concerned.
Wow. We're talking with Tim Roller. Tim, what website? I mean, do I still use Whitetail Journey for you, or do you want to send us someplace else these days? What do you think?
I don't have much of a website going on right now. I mean, I've got websites out there, but they can probably just follow me on Facebook to see what I'm doing.
And you're doing a lot these days, my friend. You're not slowing down hardly at all, are you?
Well, you can't, right?
Yeah. All right, we're talking with Tim Roller about how this whole concept of fishing for kings in the river, casting crankbaits. He was he was the first guy I know of who ever came up with this. And what tactic and technique it is. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll talk lots more with Tim about this. But the size crankbaits, what colors, where do you fish them in the river, all things like that coming up after the break right here with Tim Roller on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name's Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us. You can hear the show on more than 24 stations across the great state of Michigan, including 2 stations in Houghton Lake, the Twister 92.1 WTWS, and Powerhouse Station, Blowtorch Station 98.5 WUPS. Those are actually 2 Black Diamond stations. Black Diamond, a group of stations in northern Michigan, very, very good group of stations. We'll just leave it at that. I enjoy working with the folks from Black Diamond. So, Mike, I appreciate your partnership. Also appreciate the time, the chance to talk with Tim Roller. You know Tim. He's been around the outdoor scene here in Michigan for many, many years. I first met Tim years ago when he was a guide, his Ultimate Outfitters guide service. And I had a TV show at the time. And we kind of hit it off. Not kind of, we hit it off. And long story short, Tim ended up being a pro staffer for me on the Outdoor Magazine TV show. And I turned out, found out he was a hardcore whitetail hunter, and he still is. Did that for a few years, and then Tim says, you know what, I want to go out and do my own show. And he left me hanging. He left me hanging in a big boy in Clare. He said, I'm going to go out and do my own show. But I wished him well, of course. But along the way, Tim was very well known because one of his clients caught a world record brown trout out of the Manistee River, casting crankbaits, if I remember right. And the reason for having Tim on right now is he is the guy in my mind who pioneered the concept of casting crankbaits for kings, Chinook salmon, and steelhead, and browns in the rivers from basically this time of year right on up until much later in the fall. Tim, you mentioned the first time you went out and did this, it was about this time of year. So it's not too early to start thinking about this right now, is it?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. No, we and the more I refined it over the years, I mean, we would, the goal was every year to try and get them sooner and sooner. So there were, I don't know that we ever got one on crankbaits in June, but July became a norm. And you had to pick your right river. It wasn't every river. You had to know the thermoclines and the different things that influence those fish coming into the rivers. But if the fish were in the river, we get them with this, for sure.
Where, Tim? Where in the rivers are you concentrating?
Well, I would always tell somebody, depending, again, every river is going to be a little different. I would say the closer you can get to the mouth, the better you're going to be, depending, again, there's so many variables, right? But depending on time of the year, but this time of the year through the middle of September, the sooner you can get, or the closer you can get to that mouth, that's where them fish are going to be the freshest. That's where they're going to be coming in. The longer they stay in the river, the more of the dying process they're going under, because you got to remember, at least with the Chinooks, the kings, they're all dying. They spawn, and that's it. That's why you see end of September, end of October, when you go, the rivers, if they get any amount of kings at all in them, you're going to see them all over the place in the log jams and washed up on the inside of corners and stuff. So those fish do not make it back. Steelhead browns, completely different story. Those fish will come in and out of the rivers multiple times. But as far as the kings go, the closer you can be to that lake, the fresher they're going to be, the more less acclimated to the river, the more they're going to have those lake instincts still going, and the more aggressive they're going to be.
How late into the dying process have you seen kings hit a crank? Will one of these big old gnarly moldy blackfish still hit?
Well, I never did it up. I never tried it up around where fish were spawning, and that's where you're going to get those kind of boots, we call them, those nasty fish when they're on their last leg. So while I'm sure probably guys have and say they can, it's not what you want.
No, it's not something you would target for sure. Yeah. Okay, so a lower stretch of the river, fresher fish, but holes, runs, log jams, what?
Yeah, all of it. And the best thing I could tell somebody, if you've got a favorite river or two, just spend time doing this. You're going to figure it out real quick as far as where those fish like to sit. A running fish is a bad fish. It's a hard fish to catch, and that's going to be dictated by, fish are generally going to run more on darker days, cloudier days, although we've had bluebird days, not a cloud in the sky. We've just watched thousands of fish run by us all day. So whatever it is, that we still can't figure out with wild animals, what makes a deer do something he's not supposed to, what makes a fish do something they're not, quote unquote, supposed to, based on science and all of the other things that we try and figure out with them. There is that factor that we'll never know. And that's, I think, what true sportsmen gravitate towards is being able to capitalize on the unknown. It's always going to be there for us. But, I always tried concentrating in and around log jams, front and back. Those are places where fish would be coming up, and they'd hit those, and they'd stop, and they'd settle. Long runs that have little dips in them. And that's where, this time of the year is a great time to learn a river. Waters, unless you get a real heavy rain, are going to be pretty clear, and they're going to be at their lowest point of the year. So you can float down a river and really see everything in the runs and the holes. And that's going to help you knowing where to cast, where not to, as far as snags. But it's also going to show where those things are. And then more importantly, you'll figure out the different holes that have springs that coming up in them. And when you can get that, especially because we've got the warmest water of the year right now too. So when you can find those areas that have springs coming up out of the bottom, that's going to hold a tremendous amount of fish, because that temperature difference, especially those fish coming in from the lake, they are going to gravitate towards that. Because you got to remember, they spent the bulk of their life in hundreds of feet of water. That's a considerable different temperature than now they're coming into, 60 degrees, 65 degree weather, water temperature. It's a shocking difference for them.
You have always preached about water temp affecting steelhead fish, and I guess I didn't equate it to kings too.
Well, it's little things like that that'll make the difference. And I think that's what separates so many people, the guys that you see that are constant, because there's days where none of that matters. Again, it goes back to the it stuff, right? For whatever reason, there's days where everybody on the river, everybody on the lake is catching fish. There's also a lot of days where, like, one boat is or two boats are, and you're like, what were they doing different? They were doing the same thing I was doing, right? But there's just those little things, and a lot of it is just experience. It's just time. Any of this stuff can be figured out with time. But especially with those kings, again, when you can find that difference in water temperature throughout a column in a pretty small area like that, that's a magnet, and it will produce and hold fish year after year after year after year, because the conditions are not changing there. Those springs have been coming up forever, and they'll continue to come up in those places.
When you get those days when the fishing's a little bit tough, but one or two boats are getting all the fish, do you think those guys know what they're doing that's different, or sometimes it's just something that they don't even realize what it is?
For the most, there's always going to be that time. Listen, I'll be the first to put my hand up and say I've gotten lucky a lot. There's days where it just didn't make sense to me, and somehow you stumble on something, or right place, right time. You kind of know all the cliches, and I've been a part of all of that, and I've been blessed on many days when everything I knew wasn't working. But I think over time you'll see a consistency with guys that spend a lot of time out there, and they're able to read conditions and what was successful in these similar conditions. Maybe it was a year ago, maybe it was 10 years ago. We had weather like this, we had river conditions like this, we had fish run like this. And they can equate back to what really worked then, And those same patterns will hold true as long as you match them up with the same consistencies and the same conditions. I think that's what separates the really good hunter, the really good angler. It's just a lot of time. It's a lot of paying attention to conditions and equating them back and forth with what worked during those.
Well, it makes sense when I hear you talk about it, but when I'm out there in the woods or on the water, making that connection in my mind is where the challenge is for a guy like me, a weekend warrior.
Right, and it will be, and that's, and this isn't a plug. I can say this a lot more freely now. I felt because I'm not guiding anymore. That's where getting with a good guide, emphasis on a good guide, can really, really cut that time frame down. Not only I could show somebody in an hour in the morning everything they needed to know about casting crankbaits as far as the gear, why we use specific gear, why we use this versus this versus this, technique, why we fish in this situation like this, why we cast into there, why we don't. I can show somebody that's taken me years to figure out. I can pass that on in a really short amount of time. So for people that don't have that amount of time to just go out every day or fish 3-4 times a week throughout a season in different conditions, the best investment you can make if you really want to get good and cut that learning curve down is to get with a really good, experienced guide, because they can cut that down. It's crazy how much time they can cut off for you.
I agree completely. I think that's great advice. You were talking about, we've been talking about casting crankbaits, but we've never really said exactly, what kind of cranks are these? How big are they?
Yeah, so a lot of that varies too. I carried 4 or 5 different sizes with me. It depended on the type of bait, whether it was a crankbait or a stick bait, whether it was a floating, whether it was a diving. And by floating, I don't mean we're riding up on the surface, but we're riding within 2 feet of the surface. There were many days, and depending on the rivers we were in and the water conditions or the spots we were fishing, if we wanted to keep it above submerged timber, I'd put on a stick bait that barely, didn't get 2 feet below the surface. So I could come right across the top of them logs because them fish will sit right down in them. And there's nothing more exciting than watching, just a bunch of logs on the bottom, and all of a sudden a flash erupt out of them, and you just see this big mouth and your crankbait disappear. That's a pretty cool deal. So you don't get the topwater explosion, but a lot of times with this type of fishing and this time of the year, we get the visual. And we've had fish hit it right at the rod tip or chase it down and come out of the water at the boat, chasing these things. So it's incredibly visual. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. And again, that's, I narrowed it down to probably 3 or 4. My Rapalas were my go-to, and simply because they wouldn't fail on me.
Tim, listen, hang tight. I got to take a break here, but I want to offer you the coveted third segment if you can stick around.
Whew, how can anybody say no to that?
I have not made this offer in a long time. And the fact that Tim Roller is here, he has the time, and he is going to bless us with his experience and knowledge for one more segment, makes my day. So we'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, continue our conversation with Tim Roller about casting crankbaits in the rivers for giant king salmon. How cool is that? You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Holland on WHTC. That's Holland, Michigan, by the way. Although you could hear the podcast version of the show in the country of Holland as well. But we're talking about the West Michigan city of Holland on WHTC AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And as long as we're staying on that side of the state, let's go to Ludington. You can hear us on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN as well. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by my friends at Reeder Landscaping. Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reeder create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. In fact, they were working on our neighbor's yard the other day as well, putting in a patio there, maintenance, pruning, backyard patios, you name it. I mean, literally anything for your lawn and property. maintenance and improvement, the folks from Reeder can help you out. Check them out online at reederlandscaping.com. That's R-E-D-E-R, reederlandscaping.com. We're talking now with Tim Roller. You know Tim. He's been around the outdoor scene forever. Did the Whitetail Journey TV show. He was a fishing guide for many years. And the guy who, in my opinion, pioneered the concept of casting crankbaits for kings in the river. Kings, I call them kings, okay, but Chinook salmon, big, powerful, beautiful fish that run the rivers this time of year and for the next several weeks to spawn. Then they die, but if you get them when they're fresh, man, you could have your hands full. Tim, what's it like when you're casting a crankbait in, I don't know, 8 feet of water and one of these 20, 25-pound kings comes out of nowhere and pounds this thing?
It is the best freshwater bite available. And that's not just my opinion. I've had clients over the years that have fished all over the world. And, and some of the most explosive takes bites that you hear about are peacock bass in the jungles of South America and up through Central America. Those fish are explosive, but I've had guys that do that every year and come and do this and say this tops it. There just isn't a better bite in freshwater as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. I want to go back to gear a minute ago. We were talking about crankbaits. You like wraps. What size?
Yeah, 6s and 8s were kind of the go-tos. Those were pretty much what my box was full of. And let me just kind of go back to that. The reason that I stuck with wraps is because any one you go with here is going to get destroyed many times. The wraps are made in such a way with the wire system going through the baits and that you can get the fish in. I had many times trying other baits where we'd be fighting a fish and all of a sudden, poof, nothing. Oh, he'd come off and you come back with just the lip or the bait in half. So I always told people, if you're going to put your money into anything with this, put it into the crankbaits and the stick baits, because that will put a lot more fish in your net.
I can't imagine a fish that just destroys a bait like that. How cool is that? Unless you're buying them.
I got a box full of them.
Yeah.
I got a box full of them. Well, there is that too, but it ain't bad.
Are you mono or the braided lines?
Braided, all braided. So I'll just go through the quick gear list for you.
Yeah,
9-foot rods, medium heavy. You want one with a semi-light tip, and that's for casting, but you got to have that length for fighting these fish in the rivers. You want that backbone down through the butt of the rod to really lean on them. So medium heavy, 9-foot rod, spinning reels. You want a solid, put way more money into your reel than you do your rod, because you got to have that smooth drag, and you got to be able to just tighten it down when need to, and you want that drag not to fail for you. Braided line, we ran 30 to 40 pound test braid. 100% mono will not get it done. It's too stiff. It inhibits the action, and when you're fishing around log jams and stuff, you'll just fray every fish that gets in there is practically going to be gone for you. So braid is 100% the way to go. No particular option on braid. There's a lot of different ones out there. Make sure if you've never used braid before, you watch some tutorials, or you have somebody show you that's familiar with it on tying knots, because you can't tie a standard mono knot with braid. It'll slip out every time. So that's the gear. It's not anything fancy. It's not anything real expensive. I mean, you can kind of spend on it whatever you want to, but the keys where I would put my money is in the reel with a really good drag, and you want to have some capacity too. Don't get a reel that only holds 100 feet or 200 feet of line, because the first good fish you hook up you're gonna see the knot real quick on that, and it'll be gone. So.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. Final question for you, Tim, before I let you go. I think this is your first fall you're looking at without doing a TV show. How does that feel?
It's I'll be honest with you. It feels a little weird going into it. I really haven't. I think when I start climbing into a tree without somebody with me, that's when it's going to get really weird as far as the cameraman, because I haven't done that in like almost 20 years. So there's going to be parts of that I miss. there's going to be parts of that I really enjoy too. So I'm excited to see what it is. There's this nervous excitement about it, I guess, at this point.
Well, wonderful. I will wish you well this fall in the stand and with all of your other activities and adventures as well, and always appreciate your time, Tim.
It's my pleasure, Mike. Have a great fall.
You as well. Tim Roller. I almost said Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey. I mean, I've been saying Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey for years, but Tim is transitioning into other activities. If you look him up online, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. You can find him on Facebook. He posts a lot of very, very interesting stuff on Facebook. Expert angler, expert hunter, former pro staffer for Outdoor Magazine, and just an all-around good guy. Speaking of good guys, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner is not available, so I will fill that segment coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on the other side of the state on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. But for these 3 hours, this little corner of the one studio is the Outdoor Magazine studio. I'm in here with Pat Johnston doing a wonderful job. As always, Pat, I appreciate it. We were just finishing up munching on some more Mike Avery peppered elk sticks from our friends at Michigan Brand Meat. As we're in here in the studio doing a little bit of time shifting. Now, we always time shift when we record the show, but this week a little bit different. Recording a little early this week to cover me so I can head up to White River, Ontario, Canada. When you are hearing this show, I will be in White River. And I encourage you to check out my Facebook page, check out my Instagram feed. I'll be posting video updates. I'll be posting some trail camera pictures of hopefully of some bears that I've got coming into the baits. I'll show you my setup with my blinds. I'll be there with a couple of blinds. I'll probably bring a third blind because one of them is going to get destroyed by bears, almost always. I'm going to have the Wraith 270 see-through blind from Primal Tree Stands. This is a blind I've absolutely learned to love because one of the disadvantages of blinds is you have somewhat of a lack of visibility. But if you've got a see-through blind in front of you where you can see out what the critters can't see in, that changes everything. So I'll have one of those. And I'm also going to take one of the new Breeze blinds from Primal Tree Stands. These are blinds that are not see-through, but they still have a very good design, allowing you to have a lot of visibility. But the thing about the Breeze blinds is they're designed specifically for warm weather hunts. They've got, for lack of a better term, I'll call it a rain fly on top. It's like a double-tiered roof. The roof on the inside of the blind is mesh, and then you've got another roof that goes over the top of it, and you've got vents on the bottom of the blind, which allows for airflow. This time of year, even up in White River, we could have 80, 85 degree days. So I'm going to take one of those as well. And probably maybe another Wraith as a backup because the bears do like to come in and see what these blinds are all about. What else is going on? I mentioned those blinds. If you go to primaltreestands.com, that's primaltreestands.com, and this is a little bit of a change. I was sending you to outdoorpregame.com. We're now transitioning over to primaltreestands.com. Primaltreestands.com, if you use the promo code MIKE20 at checkout, you can get a discount on the Breeze, you can get a discount on the Wraith, and I think a discount on everything on the website, but I'm still investigating that one. Don't hold me to that one, but I know if you go to primaltreestands.com, use the promo code MIKE20, you can get discounts on the Breeze and the Wraith. Speaking of discounts, if you go to michiganbrand.net, and use the promo code MIKE21, you can get a big discount. I think it's 20% off everything on the Michigan Brand website. I've had people say, hey, well, the Michigan Brand sounds great, but I can't find it near me. Well, you probably can, but if you just want to order online, you can do that. michiganbrand.net, michiganbrand.net. Use the promo code MIKE21. As long as we're talking about promo codes, go to mucc.org, promo code Mike, all caps, save 25% on your MUCC membership. And the final one, and this one's only till September 1st, so time's running out on this. Go to versaskins.com. Versaskins.com. You know Versaskins, just change your skin for the season you're in. Versaskins.com. Use the promo code Avery20, Avery20, to get 25% off on, I think it's 25%. It's a deep discount, whatever it is. Everything at versaskins.com. And when you go to versaskins.com, you'll see that now there are sizes available for the very large hunter, up to 6X. And being a former very large guy, I can tell you that Paul Perone at Versaskins, these bigger sizes are definitely appreciated. So go to versaskins.com, up to 6X now. Use the promo code Avery20 for a deep discount there. I would encourage you, when you get a chance, when you're online, check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. MikeAveryOutdoors.com, kind of an online clearinghouse for all things Outdoor Magazine Radio and Mike Avery Outdoors as well. We're going to tweak very soon now here. Marie Hickerson from Avoda Studios and I are going to, well, she's going to do the work. Tweak the look of that website. The content will stay basically the same because I think it's a good, solid content, but we will tweak the eye appeal of that a little bit. Encourage you to join me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter to some degree. I do Wednesday night lives every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Also go live from the studios Wednesday morning at 8:45. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's where you can send me questions for the Ask Avery segment each week from Security Credit Union. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, criticisms, questions, you name it. mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Again, by the time you hear the show, I will be either on the way to White River or in White River. And if you want to see how we're doing, you want to hunt vicariously with me in White River, check out my social media outlets, and I will be updating those on a daily basis. All right, my friends, I appreciate you joining me on this edition of Outdoor Magazine. Have a great week. Hope you get a chance to get outdoors, and I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.